Hi, Maliha. I think I need to change the.
Hi.
Hi, Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum. I can't see you though.
I know, I'm just trying to, I don't know, it says it's been set. So let me just check. Let me just check the.
Sure, sure. Can you hear me properly? Hi. Looking great, Nadra. How are you doing? Now I can't hear you. Now I think you're on mute.
Yeah, good to see you after a long time. Assalamualaikum,
Long
Sheikh.
time.
Sheikh Mahmood is also here.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum.
I would like to use the same background. Let me try. I don't know why I'm not able to. Ji, Mahmood, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you, Miss Malia, for joining, and thank you so much, Nadra, for uh,
Not
making the in place of Shafak. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it,
Yeah.
so Nadra will be hosting.
she's
Uh,
a great Nadra is a great host, so she'll do a great job, inshallah.
Okay, I don't know why I'm getting this weird. Sorry, let me
I think there's something wrong with the lighting of the room, or maybe I don't know.
choose.
Do you have some light directly in front of you, Nadra?
I do on the side, yeah.
I mean, maybe that's the issue. We'll be starting in
Yeah,
about
let
seven
me
minutes
just.
from now because participants are joining. But
Okay.
until
Let
then,
me
you
So
could.
maybe
just.
we can
Yeah,
just go through the flow
yeah,
then. It's a
yeah.
great time to do that. So
Mhm.
perhaps
It's fine.
with Nadra's introductions to all of us, then how would you like to take it, Nadra? Maybe you'd like to guide us.
I think what we decided was that Sheikh Mahmood Saab will introduce.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, fine,
And
fine.
then he'll hand it over to me. I'll just give, one or two lines about the
Mhm.
topic, and then the poll will start.
Mhm.
Okay, okay. The poll meaning the two case studies that we were talking about.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there is one audience poll. That is a
Okay,
general poll for the audience. I mean, about their understanding of COP29 and everything. So after that, we'll have. I mean, we'll begin with the flow,
okay,
with the discussion, and
okay,
after 15 to 20 minutes of discussion, we will have a scenario poll for the audience. And then
okay.
Nadra, yeah. So from that scenario, Nadra will have some questions towards the panelists and
Sure.
a brief discussion, then another scenario, and then we'll close it.
Sounds lovely. Sounds great.
So
I'm
yeah,
so glad you did this format. It's so different and
Mm.
interesting and engaging, I think.
Yeah.
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 Actually, we wanted to make it a bit of interactive
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very interactive. It's
Now,
lovely.
I'm still having issues with the audio video. I don't know what to do.
I mean, is there a possibility you could remove the background? I mean, it's fine now. I
Yeah,
think. Yeah,
Yeah. Seems
it's
okay.
fine.
yeah.
It's
But
I
what
think
fine.
it's better without
Yeah.
what
the
happens
background.
is
Yeah. I think
what
it's
happens
fine.
is actually I come back to it automatically discuss has put something, so I automatically keep getting back into the.
Mm.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, okay, Malia, so you're okay with the.
Yeah, I'm okay with the flow. And so a couple of questions were posed to me about the ESG challenges globally.
Yeah.
And then the other question was that, if I remember correctly, कि what is, मैंने लिखा हुआ था, कि what is UN, हाँ, ये तो ESG challenges का था, and how can digitalization support, the implementation of digital transformation actually support. So, Uska, I just wanted to ask you when will those questions come? Those will come after all these polls and discussions. Am I right?
Uh, it's coming somewhere in between.
In
It's sort of
between.
towards,
Okay.
yeah. So it's
So
like
it's
after,
not
I think,
structured like that. हम जैसे discussion करेंगे, you might pose that question at some point in time and all. Is that how it is?
yeah, I can just tell you quickly because we just have 4 minutes.
Yeah,
So
they did
after
send a
that,
flow, but
yeah,
उसमें हाँ.
the first one is Malia about experiences during driving ESG initiatives globally.
Yeah,
And what are the biggest challenges? So
yeah.
These are the ones after poll, and then then there's scenario poll, and then I'll take insights from the panel on the scenario. Then there is again another scenario poll.
Yes, two scenarios.
And yeah, after that, like, there's a 10 minutes, and then obviously we'll do a bit of a discussion about strategies for harmonizing ESG governance. And after that, there's a 10-minute panel discussion. So after the second poll, third poll actually. So in that, it is how can digital transformation support COP29 and US. उसमें आ रहा है. That's all.
उसमें आ रहा है. ठीक है, तो शुरू में एक जनरल ESG किस तरह हो रहा है and all. And I have about anywhere between a couple of minutes. So how much time do I have? Because it's such a vast, so one can then think.
Well, about maximum actually 5 minutes, because it's because otherwise we'll run out of time. So
yes.
5 minutes, so 5 minutes each would be. Each of the participants would be about, I mean, panelists would be good, I think.
I think, ठीक है. I mean, that's good for me, because I don't want to ramble on. I'll just put mota bolungi, and I'll just give a bit of background on Adra about ESG, because it's being thrown around, but people just say, where does it come from, ESG, and kya internationally, kyun is pe, how are people dealing with it, and what are the challenges? And फिर उसके थोड़ा सा I'll touch on what is a pragmatic solution for it. Maybe that will be more helpful for the client, for the audience.
You can basically go with the flow. Actually, it's pretty well structured. So, like, I just hope that strange this thing doesn't come. Ji, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam ji, how are you?
Assalamu alaikum ji, कैसे हैं आप ऐसन?
अल्लाह का शुक्र जी, आप बताएं कैसी हैं, खैरियत से हैं?
बिल्कुल ठीक, super good. Nice to see you. So we were just discussing the panel discussion and the flow. So it's very interesting this time. It's very different from, a lot of other panel discussions and webinars.
Well, let's hope so.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Okay. I love the discuss blue, but I guess it makes me appear like an alien on my laptop. I think we should start.
Okay, so I think we should start now. Yeah, so participants are also joining in. So, okay. So welcome everyone to our another webinar, this time on strategies for navigating COP29 goals and UNSDG compliance, organized by Discuss Board. As the global community continues to address the complex challenges of climate change, sustainability, and social equity, as well as the UNSDGs, it is now mandatory for every organization to look into these aspects and plan for the future, not only of their organization, but of the world. So for today's webinar, we have our esteemed panelists, Mr. Ahsan Gilani. Ahsan Saab is a dynamic investment professional with extensive expertise in corporate and investment banking, financial risk management, and renewable energy projects. Currently serving as UNIDO, he has spearheaded funding initiatives for climate change and clean tech, while enhancing financial institution capabilities. With a strong record in structuring complex transactions across South Asia, Middle East, and Europe, Ahsan is a certified director and champion for sustainable investment strategies that integrate innovation and impact. Moving on to our next esteemed panelist, Ms. Maliha Mimi. Of launching and scaling organizations, she has driven financial institutions, sustainable development, and corporate growth through innovative strategies. Ms. Malia has held pivotal roles at global institutions, contributing to digital outreach and gender equity in leadership. She's a passionate advocate for out-of-the-box thinking, and she constantly empowers teams Barwani. Various initiatives aligned with the UN's 2030 agenda. As a co-founder of SDG Me Lab and an advisor on global sustainability strategies, Zubair has empowered organizations through private and public sectors to embed sustainability in their operations. He has expertise that spans stakeholders engagement, ESG assessments, and launching high-level initiatives focused on gender equity, youth empowerment, and sports for development. A compelling communicator and advocate, Zubair's work bridges the gap between business innovation and social impact. And our now towards the introduction of our esteemed moderator, Ms. Nadra Saeed. She is the head consultant board services at PICG, and she's also a seasoned executive and consultant board services at PICG, where she leads corporate sector development. She has over 30 years of leadership and consulting experience across risk management, business functions with top multinational and domestic financial institutions. At PICG, Nadra plays a pivotal role in board evaluations, SME corporate governance, and ESG product development, as well as a very prominent role in advisory. She contributes to the development of sustainable and responsible corporate practices. So now, before we begin the panel discussion, we have a small poll for the audience. All those who have joined in may vote on this before we officially begin the discussion. So we are just launching a poll. So as you all can see,
hello all, and best of luck with the poll.
Yeah, hi everyone. So basically, the first question, as you all have, is what is the most significant challenge your organization faces in aligning compliance with sustainability goals? You have to choose one of the following four: adapting to evolving climate regulations, balancing sustainability and profitability, integrating ESG into governance frameworks, and measuring impacts and progress. So we have about a minute for this. So here we go.
So can the audience see the poll, like the options themselves? Oh,
yeah. Can everyone see the? Does everyone have the polls?
Yes, we can see the polls.
Everyone can see that. Yeah.
Okay. So in the meanwhile, like maybe we give them about 2 minutes to do this, and in the meanwhile, maybe I could request our panelists to comment on some of these options. I mean, and not to give away like what it would be, because this
so that's
is
a tricky one, Nadra.
Yeah.
No, but very happy to be part of this esteemed panel, and I think it's going to be an exciting session today because it's going to be very interactive, and I'm very curious and happy to know that there's going to be what will the audience come up with, and what is the collective awareness and consciousness about ESG and about the climate action, and it will be interesting to know all of that.
So what else, like, have the poll results started coming in? I'm not able to see.
Okay, so let's end the poll now. I think we all can see the results. Okay.
I cannot see the results, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, even I can't.
I'll just share the results now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if you could share the results, that'd be great.
Okay, so biggest challenge is balancing sustainability and profitability. And then the second is measuring impact and progress, and integrating into governance rules, and adapting to evolving climate regulations is 7. Panel's view on this. I think the second one, like obviously as the moderator, the first concern, the first challenge I think is a significant one, Over to the panel for a few minutes of the views on the results. Maliha,
Okay,
Essence of-
sure.
Yeah.
So two bits are so very interesting results, and I must say bravo to the audience, because I think they're quite on point as to what at least the perception of the challenges are, and indeed in the implementation these are some of the challenges. However, my insights would be that it all depends how you frame your objectives. So organizations these days, and we are talking about large corporations, I draw from my experience internationally, large corporations and institutions like the IFC where I work, where I consult, they are creating double bottom lines, right? So they are creating bottom lines which have impact, and in certain cases, three bottom lines, which is profitability. There's also the social impact, and they also measure the green or the environment impact, right? So there's also a green bottom line. So if an organization's bottom line has that as a metric of success, and they measure profit in more than just financial ways, I think then this challenge which you're talking about, sustainability versus profitability, is covered, right? So because ESG is embedded in your core operations, your business, your objectives, and the impact is part of what you are doing as a corporate entity, or as we say, a corporate person. So therefore, this challenge is internationally addressed. The other two challenges, which is measurability and maybe materiality, I don't know, I think that is really now more and more what focus is being done on. Once you agree, once you have the mindset that we are going to go this route, then how do you measure that impact? How do you map what is being done? And how do you then translate it to take it to the next level? What are the objectives? So I think this is how it's panning out globally.
Okay. So you're actually, the first question I was going to ask you, you already covered most of it, was that in your experience of...
Lots to say, but if you want to ask me.
Yeah, we just wanted to know, that in your experience, because you've been driving ESG initiatives globally, clients' challenges organization face when aligning with sustainability goals. Were they sort of in some way in line with what you're seeing on the results, or globally they are different?
So globally, so I'm going to take just a few seconds, like maybe 30 seconds, to just explain how ESG evolved. That will put everything in context. So ESG didn't appear, it appeared perhaps in our consciousness a few years ago, but I've been working on its earlier forms or earlier lives of ESG. The early avatars were like when it started from the investment banking world. So as an investment banker in Singapore, about say more than 15 years ago, we were faced with ESG concerns by investors. So it started in the investment world because investors said, you're putting our money in our portfolios in different organizations, but we don't know the practices of these organizations. Are they responsible? How are they treating, what impact are they having on the world? Are they ethical companies? What can you tell us more than just the bottom lines? Because that's what typically a portfolio manager does. So there was at least in Singapore and certain developed financial markets, we created different metrics. There was ethical investments, there was CSR-based, responsible investments. And so we would look at companies and their practices. And that was the earliest form of ESG. Over the years, it became more and more part of the consciousness of not only investors, and because when you're a listed company, every stakeholder, every investor needs to have some disclosures. So then many companies, and I would say about maybe 7-8 years ago, many companies that I know of and many fund managers created their own metrics, ESG metrics, because there were no standards. So basic challenge has globally been faced was there were no particular standards or metrics to measure across the board. So everybody had to come up with their own. So that was the first and primary standard measurement challenge that all the ESG compliance and investors faced. Second challenge was regulatory challenge. So there were gaps in the regulation, right? So even though some people may be saying we're doing a great work, we are better than the others, we are very ESG, we have the 3 pillars, environment, social, governance covered, but what is the regulation rewarding, or if somebody is not doing it, what is the regulation actually sort of penalizing or holding or controlling or constraining those behaviors? So the gap in regulation was another problem, right? Then the third, I think, rather large problem was the expectation. So some people feel that, okay, having diversity, for instance, in the social aspect or social impact is not important as long as the environment is protected. Some people say, how can you protect the environment when you're in a certain industry? You know, there will be emissions, greenhouse emissions. There will be, we don't care about that. We just want some, inclusion, gender inclusion, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm saying is that there was an expectation, and because of the varied expectations, a lot of our clients also were putting challenges on us, and this was a global problem. And also companies were having a difficulty. They were saying, okay, how do we meet the expectations of our investors? And also I want to highlight over here, and this is something I think the audience will find interesting, is that when the UNSDG goals came up, there was again some confusion in the entire corporate world. And now I'm going to just narrow down from my international experience to my local experience, because I'm heading the ESG committees of a couple of organizations, one large conglomerate, I can say for sure. So the confusion is, all right, we want to do this, but we were doing CSR, we were doing philanthropy, we were doing SDGs. Now, what is this ESG, right? So what now they are doing is they're mapping the ESG goals, which is a challenge, to the SDGs. I think there's a question in here. So that is, I think, the challenge that primarily, which metric, where do we go, how do we show results? But I think what is most important now, it is that now there are standards, the IFRS standards like S1 and S2, which talk about your financial aspects, sustainability and climate, how to do disclosures. There's the SASB standards, which is again sustainability. There are so many different standards, including the GRI, which is the non-financial disclosures. So I think now the world has come far, and EU has very good guidelines that we can follow. The SECP has guidelines now. So I think corporations as responsible citizens have to be, very compliant to these, and the challenges will remain. But my, like 2 bits in my many years of experience, my golden nugget will be try and be pragmatic and try to localize, try to prioritize, try to localize what you need to do in these various areas. And that would be that if you're already doing something, say on the education side, philanthropy side, try to weave it into what your ESG goals are, and try that all of this is done under A, an ESG policy, B, an ESG committee, which would be an ESG committee under the board, just like we have the audit committee. And it should not be a part of the risk committee, which is a lot of what a lot of people are doing, which is wrong. And C, once you have the committees and the policies, and you have your realistic, practical, smart targets, which you can achieve and which are aligning and putting in all the work that you're already doing, just put them under that committee and create a task force, which is a cross-functional organizational task force, which will implement these ESG initiatives and come back with a review that this is what we've done, these are the challenges. Then the committee goes to the board and tries to resolve these challenges. Also incentivize and create awareness and create a lot of capacity within the organization. Trainings like this trainings that you do, Nadra, at PG. And so eventually all of this will come together to create a very pragmatic and doable ESG proposal.
Okay, thank you so much, Milia. That was great, and I'm sure, we'll be discussing more. Essence, I have a question for you. So, from your work in sustainable investments, right? How do financial institutions balance the need for ROI with compliance with climate-focused goals like those of COP29? I think Essence is. Essence, you're on mute.
Sorry, can you repeat your question? Because I think I lost the connection for a minute.
Sure, no problem at all. We're just saying that from your work in sustainable investments, how do financial institutions balance the need for a return on investment, ROI, with compliance with climate-focused goals like those of COP29?
Thank you for the question. It's an excellent question. My experience in 2-3 conferences which I've attended in my role with the United Nations, one was in Singapore, one was in Abu Dhabi, and then the COP. Yep. That there is a extreme gap which we have faced in terms of raising our fundings for these projects, and because the fact that there is no correlation between the risk and compliance and profitability when you're raising funding for sustainable projects. Now, what we have done in our program, our program is basically about SMEs and startup and small businesses which are working directly in the climate change area and doing impact and we do impact financing for them. All these projects are compliant by SDG, all 17 of them. You have to qualify for the program only if you are addressing one of the 17 SDG, more the merrier. So what we have done is that we have capacity built it, the banks, investors, and the companies uh, uh, in, in bringing this correlation between compliance and ROI in line with the COP guidelines. So what we have done is that we have made sure that all the projects have adopted ESG framework. Now, building on what Madam Mangesh was saying, that you have to understand that on our recommendation, State Bank of Pakistan and the SCCP is now considering having a ESG compliant board member in every private sector company, a public sector company, and every bank. Initially, it was only initially it was mandatory to have a lady director in all these boards. Now, after our recommendation, the SCCP, State Bank, are finalizing their framework to have an ESG compliant and a green financing compliant board member to be made mandatory in all these boards. So the all these funding are compliant with the ESG and the green financing requirements. Having said that, during our capacity building exercises, we had made sure that all the funding we are raising or all the industries we are working in, they should have green financing instruments like the one which Infra Kozamin just did. Um, um, then there's green guarantees and green bonds, which we have introduced through USAID and FCDO, which we are actively marketing for banks so they can lend against these instruments to make it more compliant. Then we also have uh, uh, ran lots of trainings on how to make these companies uh, carbon zero and do a net zero practices. And one more important aspect is the carbon accounting. As Madam mentioned, IFRS is now S1 and S2 is now introducing frameworks in the accounting system reporting, which will be compliant to all these guidelines of and also view the mismatch of sustainable, compliant, attached with ROI. So that is what we have done. You see, you have to understand it's a big challenge to raise money for green projects or climate change projects. I have raised $46 million in the last 2 years for around 18 projects. I had a 40 project. I have a pipeline of 38 projects. I raised money for 18 projects from locally, internationally, regionally, and we had faced extreme difficulties because banks, investors are still doing the vanilla financing where their goal is to get their ROI and get their profitability. Not making and compliance of the green or sustainable or climate change guidelines as part of their risk or their credit policy, which we have been able to penetrate into their system, but that all the risk compliance policies of banks, investors should not judge our projects or do not assess them as commercial loans or as loans of SMEs, of typical SMEs, as defined by State Bank. They should assess these projects as a climate change impact financing. And while doing that, we had introduced three different policies into our DFIs like Pak Brunei, Pak Oman, Pak Kuwait, Bank of Punjab, Mizan, Al Falah. That we had told them that if you are not going to change your assessment criteria for these projects, we will we will bring in green instruments like green guarantees to back our projects. We have been successful moderately, not fully, because obviously you need to have institutional support, regulatory support to make these policies and these measures become part of a bank policy, which only State Bank can do or SCP can do. So, wrapping it up, when we identified these challenges and could not and found this gap, which was huge. Because see, when our project was 4 years, it started in 2018. In 2020, and then there's COVID, and now we're in the last year of our program. For first 2 years, we were not able to raise a single penny. With my background as a banker, as an asset management expert, SME banker, it was a big challenge for me that I'm not able to raise a single penny. But then once we identified these gaps and started working towards them and bringing that connect between compliance and ROI in the framework of sustainable financing, we raised $46 million. So the basic problem is the gap, but the basic problem is the acceptability and understanding of this sector. There is 4,200 crore in lending as per 2024 numbers. Out of that, 3,100 crore is with the government of Pakistan. So banks do not want to do anything. But this is lent to the government and the profit. And 1,100 crore is with the private sector like the Manchas and the Jahangir Siddiquis and the AKD, who do not need money, who are banks of their own. So where do we go? That is why what we have done as part of the program is not only to raise money, but also capacity build these institutions, the DFIs, banks. NIBAF is one of my partners. We have ran 7 trainings in the course of last 2 years, specifically towards the subject of how to lend to SMEs and fintechs and startups in climate. Addressing this very challenge, which you have just mentioned, how to bring that between compliance and RR.
Okay, thank you so much, Essen. So now we can we have another interesting poll for the participants. And if you can just put up the questions for them, it's basically navigating COP29 compliant investments. So the scenario is that your organization is evaluating a renewable energy project aligned with COP29 goals. The project offers a significantly sustainability impact, but poses financial risk, including higher upfront costs and potential delays in ROI. Leadership must decide on how to proceed while balancing compliance, financial prudence, and stakeholder expectations. Just what we were just discussing with the panelists. So the 3 options are there. If everyone can start voting, just First is to proceed cautiously, balancing financial risk with compliance. Second option is invest fully, prioritizing compliance and long-term sustainability. And third is seek alternative projects with lower risk but slower compliance alignment. So if you can just start this off. And we have about 2 minutes. So how should the leadership? So, we've been discussing Maliha and Essence Akhtar, we were just discussing this, that the trade-offs, right? Especially when, Essence touched upon the quite a few points in this. So let's see what, and Maliha, you raised those questions as well, like, well, rather answers these questions. So let's see what the audience has to say now.
I have touched upon these answers already, so.
Yes. So let's see what the poll is like. Okay. Okay, so basically, the proceeding cautiously, balancing financial risk with compliance. I think that's the top. Now there is a trade-off, right? So I would just take this back to the panel, and if I can just have a few minutes each of Maliha, and then we can move on to Essence of views on this.
So yeah, so as always,
is this a general concern which is there, because that's the first, the trade-offs are a reality, right? So
absolutely. And
you
again,
have to take between risk, compliance, and Okay, Malia, over to you.
Sorry. So yeah, Madhura, absolutely. I'm just totally agreeing with what you're saying. And actually, I think I'm kind of agreeing with what the audience is saying, because I think that perhaps, the greatest challenge, I think, is that, you don't want to disrupt your organization and the route that you're taking, your overall strategic direction and profitabilities due to these compliances. So you kind of balance it out. However, so the overall concept is there, but look at what the majority are saying. They're not saying let's go not do it. They're just saying do it cautiously. So that tells you a big thing. The bigger picture is that everybody is aware that this is something that has to be done. Whether you do it to a greater or a lesser degree, this compliance in climate, environment, social ESG compliance is really critical. And so how you do it, the why is not the question, because everybody knows that we have to do it, but the how is really in question over here. And for me, how is quite straightforward, Nadra. It's basically that you take the necessary precautions like the audience is saying. But for me, the second option also, which was the prioritization, and I did touch upon it, that how it's being done internationally and how I'm also implementing it in the committee and the organization, is that we are prioritizing at board level, right from the top. The priorities come from the top. So we prioritize and we embed it into our strategy, and then let it roll out in our business operations. So these are my two comments on it. Thank you.
Okay, G. Acid. You're on mute.
I would agree with what Malia has said. Okay, we have already covered this a little bit. Okay, the idea is that you need to ensure a ongoing policy on climate finance or climate lending. Now, you have to understand that we are phasing out, or we are in the phase of mitigation. Now, next 4 or 5 years, we have to start adaptation. So this sector is going to be active, and the sector would need a lot of money. The question on the poll is very simple. You have risk, and you don't have the front cost. Talk to people like us. We will give you the grant to we will give you the grant to
There's
capacity
Lots
build.
of money.
We'll put in
If
the
I may
bills
say
which you
so,
can't
there's a
put
lot
in.
of green money floating around, that you're
Yeah,
looking.
I wasn't aware of, so much because,
See,
yeah,
you have to understand, the 16 months of my project was challenging when there was a transition of
yeah,
the governments. And there was a geopolitical situation. But you need to understand, and Malia and all the other
yeah,
parents agree with me, that donors all over the world do not want to actually see what's happening behind the scene. They want to see who do we keep accountable in the next 5 years.
Yes.
We have a government for 5 years, regardless of what opposition we have and what's happening in the ground. Because it's same is
yeah,
happening in the UK, same is happening in the US, same is happening in Russia. The psyche of a donor, whether it's BII, whether it's IFC, whether it's the World Bank, whether it's ADB, whether it's FCDO, whether it's Infra Croatia, is they want a stability for 5 years, which we have given them. So my program has a $600,000 limit only to capacity build the projects with the shortcomings. So if you don't have the money for a study or a feasibility study or to beef up your professional model, I'll put the money for it. Because my goal is that your project raises the money. So once I have put in the money, your risk is already diversified because my skin in the game now. So like my project is PFAN, it's hosted by United Nations. So you have two very high profile reputed institutions standing behind the project. Then my funding is to USAID. That's another third party which is
mm,
very reputable and a biggest donor in the world. So my project has already gone through these three sets of risk and compliance and audit before they can be put up to a bank or an investor to lend. So I've done 50% of their work because my project goes to the UN criteria of audit. Then it goes to USAID's audit. Then it goes to the PFAN's internal guidelines. Then it
yeah,
becomes investable and showed. So when I have given the money to capacity build by doing your market study or a feasibility study or a price model, my skill is the game. My job is to make sure the project succeeds, and it gets the borrowing, it gets the lending, it gets the grant and the lending, and it make and have enough confidence on my numbers that it will pay it back. So
yeah,
in this scenario, you have to understand there is private sector and there is donor sector. You cannot just bring the two together because private sector is being a banker, private banker all my life. My job is to make sure that I earn the money. I get my promotion, I get my bonus. I have to lend at Carbon Plus 8, 7, 9, 10. Make sure that
yeah.
if the bank, if the customer is
And the
coming to
risk,
sign a document,
yeah,
I charge a fees for document signing as well and make money.
yeah,
In development sector, it's not that. My goal is that I should do impact financing, and that impact should
yeah,
lead towards sustainability and comply with the SDG. So um,
mm,
you have to understand everything you do new. We are bankers when you're young, when Malia Saba started your
yeah,
career, or when you started your career. When I was an RM, we had no idea what
mm,
corporate banking is, what lending is. When I moved to asset management, when I moved to AMC in Picking and
yeah,
HBL, I had no idea what mutual funds were. So you have to understand, do not shy away from new concepts. The world is changing. You have to change it.
Right.
Thank you so much, Essen, for your, insightful and covers the banking, which is very close to my heart as well. And I think banks have a major role to play, in this sustainability. But yeah, the DFIs and specific purpose, institutions for this would be required. So at this point in time, we have also Zubair Saab with us.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Hello.
Apologies.
Salaam.
I've had some technical difficulties here in London, so apologies for joining late. But I've been listening in as best I could.
Okay, great. So maybe you could give us your views as an advocate for sustainability. How do you recommend organization incorporate ESG principles into governance frameworks?
Well, fundamentally, first of all, thank you for asking me to join this session. I think it's timely, not just because of what's happened with COP, but because we're so close to the 2030, I wouldn't say finish line, but one of the key milestones of addressing many of the major issues of the world that we see prevalent now and perhaps in the future as well. I think fundamentally for me, As you said, as an advocate for sustainability, and I've been in this field for many number of years now. So I don't consider myself to be by any means an expert, but definitely I have insights and views from both a UN perspective and the direction of travel that we need to take, but also from a corporate perspective, having worked with companies on that journey. And I think for us collectively, this is the sustainability opportunity is very much that the SDGs provide this wonderful, an absolutely wonderful framework of a set of parameters. I wouldn't say rules or guidelines or deadlines or regulations, but this framework that provides everyone the opportunity to move forward both their business and society at the same pace. And this presents a number of opportunities as well. And Haisab Belibatka, he was talking about being in banking, and I've spent time in the banking sector as well. So I know the pressures of business that come on driving revenue. But I think where we collectively, and we need to work in a way that's with the profit. So the SDGs provide this beautiful framework. I think it's a universal language. Everyone can understand the outputs and the direction of travel and what it is that we need to do. And that's wonderfully articulated through the 17 goals and then the 280 plus indicators behind it. So if I put it slightly in a different perspective, there's no excuse for us not to look at the SDGs and for us not to consider putting them through business or policy or in the organizations that we work for. And I include non-profit driven businesses as well. And I think if we can take that first step, and that's what I've been advocating for, so as a lobbyist and as an advocate as well, for us it's been about take the first step. And the first step is understand where you stand right now. So baselines. If you don't know your health condition of your organization, whether that be business, government, education, even in your own home, how are you going to chart out a map for the progress that you need to take? And then we're very keen on setting ambitious targets. Businesses certainly do that. And I saw that at COP as well, ambitious targets being set. But if you don't have the baseline, how are you expected to deliver on those targets and those outcomes that you wish to see? So fundamentally, I think it goes without saying, understand where you are right now, take a pause, reflect, see how is this pivot going to be undertaken in your organization. And for some, it might be a small pivot. So for SMEs and startups at the early stage of their business and growth, taking on sustainability and ESG frameworks is a little bit simpler. I'm not going to say easier, simpler, because you're not a mammoth vehicle who needs to, Suez Canal, tanker turning kind of concept. But if you've taken the first step and you understand where you are, then it's easier to map out or simpler to map out the journey that you take. And then there are other considerations as well, as the brother said. There's a cost implication, whether that be financial in terms of investing back in the business, in terms of new products, new services, new infrastructure, machinery, on people and resources, developing policies. They're not easy to do. Getting everyone on the same page as well. But I think for the UN's perspective, it's about enough talk and let's start taking action. It's okay to have ambition, but let's look at how we can make those ambitions into real action. And again, I go back to, the sustainability opportunity as a way of looking at how you can future fit, protect your business, and look at also, and this is a longer conversation, but I'm conscious of time as well, and you have other guests, that profit can be balanced with purpose. And we've worked with a number of organizations in Pakistan. We have our hub in Pakistan, a regional office outside as well. And the common thread that we're seeing is that once you've taken the baseline and now you have an understanding of where you are, you can then determine where you'd like to be versus where you could be depending on the investments that you make and where you may find the hurdles and the challenges.
Yeah.
And then work out a strategy or a map, a roadmap of where you can go immediately in the next 90 days versus longer term. And then some of the support that you need. And there's a lot of support available. And, one of the things talked about at COP was transition finance and focus on that. So there are possibly and definitely likely more opportunities to grow business innovatively, delivering on some of the mandate of the UN and government. And I think, I will go back to everyone saying, do not be afraid of sustainability and ESG. If you are afraid, there's no need to be afraid. Ask people around you, ask people like myself and the other panelists. We're here to help and support. If you can understand the opportunity of sustainability, it is a game changer, absolute game changer. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you so much, Zubair Saab. So we have another poll. We've been having quite a few polls. And an interesting one is a scenario poll. For the participants, like a multinational company struggles to implement consistent ESG governance across regions with various regulatory standards. I think quite a realistic scenario here. So teams in some regions face challenges aligning with local laws while meeting global UNSDG goals. Leadership must create a unified yet flexible approach. There are only 3 choices. You have to choose one and develop a unified ESG policy with regional adjustments, prioritize compliance in high impact regions first, or focus on building local partnerships for tailored ESG solutions. So as the poll results come in, maybe the panelists could give some views. Sheikh Mahmood Saab, you will let us know when the poll results are in.
Just a comment. I think some of these things in my talk, I did address them, the challenges about standards. So this is a very relevant matter. And the actual, as I work with local companies, of course, internationally also we face this. And what we did was, we, at least in the IFC, what we did was we looked at, a few years ago, we looked at the ESG, goals, the pillars basically, and then we mapped some of the SDGs under those pillars, and then we did, and all organizations need to do what is just being discussed also, like I said earlier, was that just look at where you are right now and then make those, targets and see what are you already doing. So my question, I guess, was that is this a single choice that the audience has to make? Because sometimes, and I'd be interested in hearing the views yet again, but sometimes it is a mix, it is, and especially when we talk about many geographies which multinational companies or multinational organizations face, then this is it's a very complex area to navigate simply because of the gaps. I think earlier, even Essen was saying that there are gaps, regulatory gaps, there are understanding gaps, and then again, like what I was saying, because also perhaps I come with this mindset because I've actually been certified in localizing SDGs, internationally. So the best way forward or the most pragmatic way forward, and perhaps we can discuss, is also looking at what can be done in the context, in the local context. And I think that was also one of the choices. So I think in essence, there will be no wrong answer today. So whoever whatever, so the poll will be an interesting one.
I think, okay, so we did receive that feedback that there should have been actually at least 2 options. It should not be a single choice. So, okay, so interesting, the highest is, they've said, is focused on building local partnerships for tailored ESG solutions, with the second highest being develop a unified ESG policy with regional adjustments.
Absolutely.
So, and compliance in high impact being the last. So I would just quickly go to each of the panelists to take their views on, in their experience, what is the most commonly followed strategy, which is, at this point, I would just like to say we do have few questions and we'll try to address those before ending the session. Thank you.
So would Zubair want to go first because you had not had a chance earlier?
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I think it's interesting your point, Malia, about having multiple choice, and I think that's the Achilles heel of sustainability in ESG and reporting, that it's like kaun sa karna zaruri hai, and most, and you engage with companies as we have as well, and the fundamental question that a CEO of a company or a director of CSR or sustainability will say is, what's the minimum that I need to do? Compliance ke liye kya karna hai? And I used to have that conversation in a different way, and now I just say, again, because it's about the journey. If that's the direction of travel you want to take, don't accept the bare minimum if it's compliance. Let's look at how we can make you better and a champion within your own organization and as an organization externally as well. So it goes back to my earlier point about opportunity and Milia's point that maybe there should be multiple choice. So I think it depends where you sit right now. So again, where are you as an organization right now? And what do you believe from what you understand in terms of your knowledge of sustainability and ESG and governance in the wider remit, and all of these regulations that are being lobbied to come in? And I'm part of that lobby of pushing regulation, reluctantly somewhat, because I believe it should be carrot, not stick. That if an organization is thinking, what do I need to do versus what should I do, then the direction of travel is always going to be compliance. And then the compliance is always done at the minimum level. And then you're looking to, what do I need to do in my organization in Pakistan, in Singapore, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that sets the pace and it sets the direction. So the pace is, let's just do what we're required to do and let's do what we need to do all the time. If you're then of a different baseline and thinking, well, this is not compliance, this is about using governance frameworks as an opportunity to engage stakeholders, shareholders, and drive revenue, as everybody might understand from KYC and all that kind of opportunity, then you're getting to know your customer in a complete different way. So you're still using compliance, but you're going above and beyond. So that's the ambition. And then if we go a little step further and you think, okay, well, maybe it's not just about compliance and ticking the boxes. Maybe this is an opportunity or a direction of travel that everyone else is taking. And we're all going to be in the same situation 5 years down the line. So jahan hum ab sab hai, wahan pe 5 saal ke baad we'll all be there as well, because everyone will be complying to the same standards that Millie had referred to earlier. So what can we do now a little bit more that can help us navigate this journey and navigate this space so that we can be competitive ahead of our customers? Maybe there is more compliance and governance opportunity because that's usually what works for companies. So I know when we've engaged CEOs, whether it be textile or financial, and worked with a couple of banks recently, to say, compliance karna hai, let's get all of that house in order first. But also let's keep one eye on the non-compliance issues so that you can make this an opportunity. So compliance to karna hai, aaj nahi to kal. So let's get that done. Now, where else can we help you grow your business? Where can we generate revenue? Where can you use this to be an advantage so that you're 2 steps ahead of your competitors? Or if that seems like it might be a slightly bigger proposition because you have to engage policymakers, then let us help you lobby government to make the policy more conducive so that you can drive revenue and growth. And maybe you work with other banking institutions or finance institutions to grow collectively this mandate of ye policy change honi chahiye, yeah, we need to get some concessions, or we need to have ABCD mandate in place. So I think, yeah, fundamentally the question is double-edged sword, and it could be answered in many different ways. But for me, I think it's, what's your priority based on what do you understand at the moment? And I go back, if you've got a baseline, you have your ECG report, as it were, medical report, then right, what's my priority? What do I need to do right now
Yeah.
And also what's not easy, but what's simpler for me to do right now. Compliance is a little bit simpler because the regulations exist. You can choose which one you want to adhere to. You can pass that on to your internal compliance team and the knowledge. There's lots of information online and frameworks are available, or you can hire someone and get those things done. But until an organization understands its own heartbeat, it's not going to take full advantage of this opportunity to become future fit.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Zubair Saab. Actually, you even answered while discussing this post the question that I was going to ask you.
Okay.
So yeah, so thanks a lot, Malia. With more of a specific question, because we are almost reaching the end of the session, and I think it would be amiss to um, just one last question from you, in essence of. So, in your view, Malia, how can digital transformation support COP29 and UNSDG compliance effectively? We have a few minutes, so
I'll try to be positive.
that's summing up your entire,
put it in a
Yeah.
nutshell. I'll say that what is digital transformation? Basically, it is using technology to transform the way the entire organization operates. And we're not talking about digitalization or digitization of data, about digital transformation altogether. So leveraging technology, one of the key things that we were talking about earlier was that how do we, for instance, measure what baseline we're at, what are our different businesses doing, what are our emissions, et cetera, and how are we impacting what is our negative impact, and what is perhaps even our positive impact. So by digital means, we can measure the flow of information, of course, data collection and measurability, and again, the impact of the work that we do. One is that aspect. And the other is on the awareness and creating an understanding within the organization and with the external and internal stakeholders. So whether they be invested or not. So that is one aspect of digitalization. And the other aspect is using technology itself to create, for instance, smart organizations, more efficient organizations, whether it's in energy saving, whether it's when we're talking about, I come from the financial world. So for me, green finance, green banking, we've launched, environment specific products, and using digital platforms to offer these, to a wider audience, which is what Esin was also saying. So it's such a huge subject, but yes, technology can be an enabler in different aspects. And again, in reporting this to the regulators, to international standards, all these dashboards and all can be created through digitalization and digital transformation, and eventually decision taking. If we embed ESG in our strategy, in our policy, in our future state, where the goals we want to achieve, then this technology and this digitalization will enable us create those dashboards, those metrics, and also reward the behaviors, but because we need to create, and someone spoke about the carrot versus the stick. So yes, when we want to internally incentivize people to become more, aware and conscious of these matters and to implement these ESG initiatives, then we need to measure the efforts at a very minute level, at a grassroots level, and then reward these efforts. So all the digitalization will make this possible.
I think we definitely the way the time has passed and we're reaching the end of the session, I think a follow-up session must be organized. And I think each of these topics actually calls for a totally separate webinar by itself. So just coming to Esin, very quickly before we go on to the next poll, some question and answers. So in your view, what role does leadership play in driving compliance and innovation in climate finance?
Leadership plays only one role. Stay focused on the end goal. What is the end goal? climate finance, climate change is a very focused area. Switch, Malia, Vasa, both will agree with me. It took me a month or two to switch from corporate banking mindset to Zen, because my focus is that my project should raise money, do their plastic recycling, do their wind power project, do their data center project, do their gender-led project, do their agriculture project, stop burning the rice husk, make it, recycle it to energy. That's my focus as the leader. And that is how I drive the team, that's how I drive the project, and that's how I drive the stakeholder. So only thing which leadership can do is to be focused on the end goal, which is very simple, which is stop talking about what our forefathers left us, which is start talking about what we'll leave our grandkids.
Yeah.
A planet to live in.
Forward looking. So I would really like, I'm enjoying this discussion so much that I think I can get carried away, but we have the audience, a lot of questions coming from them. So I'm just going to pass on the questions. What strategy can be most effective in achieving global ESG and UNSDG goals despite regional challenges? This is from Munir Ahmed.
I'm happy to take that one.
Sure.
Munir Bhai, I think the fact that you're asking the question is the very first step in the journey. So Mubarak, you've taken that first bold step. From here on now, it just gets easier. I would say baseline always, and as Malia said, technology. So there are many baseline assessments. We have one as well. Also, is understanding where you are right now, and then determining the lane that you jump into and the direction of travel. So when you're thinking about ESG and reporting and frameworks, choose the one that makes most sense to your business, because if you choose the one that's the most difficult, you will end up getting stuck, and you'll end up setting yourself targets that are unattainable as well as actually harmful for your business. So, it requires a slightly wider conversation. I'm happy to pick up after, the panel session and give you some guidance if you'd like. But fundamentally, it goes back to where would you like to be and what can your business afford to do? And affordability is not just financial affordability, it's time as well. So do you have the resources in your team and your people that understanding the knowledge, etc.? But embrace it, because as I said earlier in one of my points, sustainability and ESG is now the way forward. Whether we like it or not, it's here. People on the panel, myself, we're fortunate that we were able to jump in much early, so we have a better understanding. But we also have a responsibility and accountability, not just for our organizations, but as individuals, to ensure that we create a conducive environment for you to progress. Because if you don't succeed, we haven't succeeded. And it doesn't matter what technology and what will we have in the world and how much philanthropy we do. If we don't take this moment right now as our opportunity, we will have failed ourselves, and we will fail, as Ersenbai said, our future generations. So I think just take a moment to pause. Don't think you have to do everything. It's not your responsibility to solve all the problems of the world. However, and I say this with respect, it is your responsibility, our collective responsibility, to make a contribution to that. So in the position of power that you hold and the position of authority that you are engaged in your organization, you have an immense amount of contribution that you can make, either through advocacy, either through actual physical aspects of your work, taking a baseline, helping others, whatever it may be. The list is endless. And, I remember when I was in the UN, we had a conversation with Ban Ki-moon at the time, and he said the SDGs are the world's biggest to-do list. So I'm very conscious that all of that burden should not be shared on one person. It shouldn't be a finger pointing. But you've taken the first step by asking the question. Rest now is just very simple. So yeah, happy to guide on that.
Okay, thanks a lot. There's a question from Moin Khan, Pro Private Limited. How do Pakistan's climatic zones affect the country's economy? over to the your voice is breaking. Maybe it's my
Is it
signal.
better now? My
Yeah,
so
now
I just wanted to
yeah.
add to the excellent, very moving actually, sort of a few minutes of understanding that was given by Zaid just now. But I just thought that I should say that, what is being time and again said is that it is a collective. So it is a collaborative effort. So wherever in your organizations, you feel that other organizations within the industry or within a group of organizations, like I'm actually doing this. So I'm saying wherever you see a synergy that somebody is doing something which you would like to do, and they may be doing it under CSR or they may be doing some philanthropy like you can put it in that framework that is there for various ESG. And so globally, this is being done. So that's one aspect of how you can do it. And the other is that, so we were talking about synergies, we're talking about collaboration, and we're also talking about drill down really deep and break it down. I would say don't take very big targets, take small targets. Say, okay, this is an achievable thing, because that is, it's being said that it's a journey, right? So you want to be on that journey, and you know that there are challenges. So take on smaller targets, doable. So as you keep getting results, you can build on it. So it should be an iterative process, I think. Practically, I've seen that work much better than having, the weight of the world, as it were, on you. So that's all I want.
So we can just, we have to we've made a note of all the questions that have come in, and we could probably, Mahmood, we could probably get back to them after the session and take just one more question right now, because we have run out of time.
May I just make a suggestion on, because this is a great opportunity for us three panelists as well to engage, and obviously panel sessions never do justice, 45 minutes to an hour, or the getting to know and all that kind of stuff, and building trust as well. So
Absolutely.
if it's okay with you, and this has worked for us in the past, if you're happy to set up a WhatsApp group, the questions can be thrown on there. People can leave a voice note, and we can voice note respond directly, because rather than type, it's, and जो भी सवाल हो, जैसा भी उल्टा सीधा हो, it's fine, as long as it's within that safe framework. Happy to answer.
I think that's a great idea over to discuss for this, but I think that's a great idea, because it's really not possible to do that, and we have quite a few interesting questions coming in. So we'll just end with
Just ask before we end, how many questions do we have? Like, how many people are interested in?
We have quite a few. I think there are about 7 or 8, at least more.
Yeah.
So a quick question, maybe Esan or Zubair or Malia, one of you could address that. It's from Syed Faraz Ali. How other industrial sectors like pharmaceuticals, FMCGs can move towards the UNSDG compliance process? So quite a broad question, but we could try and
very quickly, if I may. Thing is that SDG is done given you one thing, and Zubair Saab and Malia, please correct me if I'm wrong. It has made you think beyond yourself and humanity. It has the marine life, it has the earth life, it has the sky life, it has air, everything. Pharmaceuticals and other sectors, all they can do is to start recycling their waste. They have to start using the green, environment-friendly phenomena and processes, the chemicals, and trust me, it was a surprise to me when I went to Singapore that each and every industry, pharmaceutical, non-pharmaceutical, all the raw material is now available, which is environment friendly,
100%.
and cheap. You have to understand that having been worked in the industry, there was a time when one of my employers stopped getting orders from overseas in Europe because he was not complying to the SDG or the sustainability goals or the environment. So it's very simple. I will again go to the around your own house. Mend your own house, and then the change will start. And see that it talks beyond the human life, the marine life, the air life, the quality of air, the life on the planet. Just comply with these. It is not rocket science. Change your thought, change your processes, and we are, if not home, we are halfway there.
I'll just very quickly echo what Ehsan Saab said, and more of a next steps for Safraz. Exactly said, when we talk about baselines, the easiest thing to do is just look at where are my touch points. So who are my stakeholders in my business? So you have internal stakeholders and you have external stakeholders. So your suppliers, your companies that you deal with, people that buy your products, to government regulators, etc. Look at all your touch points. Say, how can I impact all of these people, or how do I impact them currently? So I sell to them, I make profit, I do this, I get packaging, I do this, etc. And this is a 30-minute exercise. आपकी चाय उतनी देर में ठंडी हो जाएगी जब तक आपने ये कर लिया है assessment. And then you work out what's the impact that I would like to make. And then use the framework and you just kind of overlay it and say, okay, so जैसे ऐसे भाई बात कर रहे थे, okay, so they have waste, effluents. Can I do something differently to create less impact? Don't think you're going to change the world, but can I do something in my whole steps of my process? And if you can identify just one part, and it might be easy to do, it might be difficult, and it might take one person, it might take 10 people conversation. That is then the pivot of change. So imagine the oil tanker in the Suez Canal. It can't do that, but it can at least make us a slight adjustment. And then, people like ourselves, Amelia, are here to help navigate how you do that. And don't think one size fits all. So what's good for your pharmaceutical company is different for what it might be for another. And we've just finished an assessment in Pakistan for a pharmaceutical company in Karachi. And it was interesting because now they're focusing on SDG 9 and 10, and they're talking about reducing inequalities. So that will be perhaps lower price medication. I don't know. That's their decision to take. But they've aligned with a number of goals that they hadn't aligned with when they were doing CSR. Education kar rahe the, school bana rahe the. Wo apni jagah, that's great. But now, because the way the SDGs work, and they're all interlinked, and that's why I love sustainability, I love the SDG framework. You do one thing here, and wahan par impact bhi ho raha hai. So, if we can get people to understand a little bit differently and change perspective, and when mindsets change, behaviors change, and when behaviors change, investment happens, products get sold, and now you're moving profit with purpose. So I think, just echoing what Ehsan Bhai said, that, whether you're pharmaceutical or textile or corporate FMCG, fundamentally everyone's starting point is the same. The direction of travel you take for you is dependent on how, so imagine going to the gym. How quickly do you want to be physically fit? And, what's your kind of ambition? And is that set by because regulation, or is it set by your competitors, or is it set by your industry or peers, etc.? Or is it just something that the CEO is saying, we need to do this. Let's look at what works for us. And that's fundamental. What works for you will work for everyone. So, don't try and do everything. Focus, still run your business. If you're in the pharmaceutical or oil and gas business, you're still doing what you need to do. Fundamentally, you can't change that. And then you employ other people. Let's ensure that what you do is aligned with sustainability and ESG and the UN's frameworks. We help you lobby government so that it can become a more conducive environment, engage stakeholders, and become a champion. And those are the kind of the big steps.
Okay, thanks a lot. I think that pretty much sums it up. It's been a very, very insightful, session, and I think it's just the tip of the iceberg. So we would like to now wrap up, and we have noted all the questions. There are quite a few questions. There are 8-9 more questions, and there will be a WhatsApp group, so we'll get an opportunity to have further discussions there. So I would like to thank Sheikh Mahmood, and hand over to you for closing the session, and the panelists for an extremely interesting discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadra.
Thank you so much, Nadra. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining for the very productive webinar. Very much the need of time, and we hope you all found it insightful and very helpful. Well, indeed, it's just the tip of the iceberg and just starting off a very long journey, and only as a team we can achieve that. So let's keep the conversation going, and let's continue as a team to make a real impact. So thanks again for joining, and looking forward to connect with you all. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
You all take care. Have a good day.
Thank you.